Welcome to Community Crypto on CoinDesk TV. I'm your host, Isaiah Jackson, and this week we are discussing decentralized autonomous organizations, also known as DAOs, and the future of finance and governance. I'm joined now by Yossi Hasson, CEO of Metaversal, and Ace, a Shiba Planet influencer. I want to remind everyone that this is not financial advice. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hey, Ray, how you doing? Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Glad to have you both. And I want to jump off with an easy question, and I'll start with you, Yossi. What exactly is a DAO?
Well, a DAO stands for a decentralized autonomous organization, or you could just think of it as a decentralized organization. And the way I think about it is I compare a C Corp, what we know in the traditional venture world or in the traditional business world, a structure that allows you to manage a company that is powered by equity. DAOs are the way that decentralized organizations or Web3 or crypto organizations come together and govern them. So it's the structure for Web3 crypto organizations.
Oh, yeah. And with that definition, tell us a little bit about a DAO that you were involved in, the ConstitutionDAO.
Yeah, the ConstitutionDAO was an effort by a group of individuals who came together literally over a weekend, saw that one of the most cherished US documents was available on auction for the first time, where people of the public stood a chance of potentially acquiring it. And they came up with the crazier idea of what about getting the people to really govern the Constitution? So could we get a group of individuals, in fact, 17,000 individuals came together, raised $48 million to try and acquire one of these documents, this rare copy of the Constitution, so that the people could actually govern it, put it back in the hands of the people. And that was done in the form of a DAO, a decentralized organization, where these 17,000 people, whoever contributed towards it, would have a vote in how that document then got governed from then onwards.
Oh, yeah. And that's sort of what America was built on, right? A real true democracy where everybody has a vote. So it's great to see that in a decentralized autonomous organization, because that looks like where we're headed. And speaking of, Ace, I want you, if you could, describe for us what's going on with the Shiba Inu Doggy DAO that has now been presented in late December.
Oh yeah, thanks for that. And I'd also like to reiterate that was a really good definition of a decentralized autonomous organization. I'll pretty much say it's pretty much an organization where decisions get made from the top up, from the bottom up by a community, and they're usually enforced by a specific set of rules on a blockchain. Right now, with the Doggy DAO, which you're referring to, this is Shiba Inu's way of removing the current accountability, which is on the Shiba Inu team, to make decisions, on behalf of the community. It's to sort of reduce that level of accountability, and that's something which the originator, Yossi, he actually intended it from the beginning. So how that's happening, how DAOs work is the power is actually usually enforced by ownership of a token, of a governance token. And within the Shiba Inu community, we have what's called the Bone token. The Bone token is the native governance token of the Shiba Inu community. And I suppose we'll be talking a bit more in depth later about it. But basically, this allows the Shiba Inu community to vote on proposals which have been made regarding the ecosystem, so that we can, steer the project, whether specifically about our decentralized exchange or specifically about other generic proposals.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's go ahead and go into it. Absolutely. We'd love to hear more. How can the governance model of this DAO, how does it give users control, and how does it show accountability for the creators and the team that are upholding the code?
Okay, great point. Well, I'm not sure how much you know about the Shiba Inu community, project, but Shiba Inu is an ecosystem of tokens. There's Shiba Inu, that's the main token. There's the Bone token, and there's the Leash token. And Shiba Inu also runs a decentralized exchange called ShibaSwap. So at the moment, the first version of the DAO, which is being released, it actually allows the Shiba Inu community to have a say on what we call woofable pairs. Those are specific pairs of cryptos which are listed within Shiba Inu, where people can, where crypto projects can provide liquidity for, and they get rewards back in the Bone token. So at the moment, the decisions for those, what pairs are listed there, have been made, traditionally by the Shiba Inu team. But since it is a community based project, that decision making power really should come from the community. So that's the first version of the DAO which is being made at the moment. And in order for votes to be made, it's any Shiba Inu community user who holds the Bone token and also has staked it. Because when you stake it, then it becomes what's called, from Bone, it becomes T-Bone. And, holders of that T-Bone, they get to exercise the power of their vote. And, I guess that's based on those votes, those specific crypto pairs will be listed. Yeah, in a nutshell.
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, it's putting your money where your mouth is, essentially, and using your money to vote. We vote with our money. We vote with our voice. We vote with our feet, depending on where you live. So a lot of things there in order to achieve governance. And I want to pose that same question to you as well, Yossi. What are some of the DAOs that you're involved in, and even the Constitution DAO? How does the governance work, and what are projects that you're looking at in order to have that accountability as well?
Yeah, unfortunately for ConstitutionDAO and for the people, we did not win the auction to acquire that iconic document. So ConstitutionDAO ceases to exist in its traditional form. There is still a token called the People token that exists. People who hold the People token had the choice of being refunded their ETH, or they could keep the People token and continue to have it and form potentially a new organization. But the DAO in its original form no longer exists, so there is no real governance that is happening within that community because its core purpose of acquiring a constitution did not happen. Other DAOs that we at Metaversal are involved in and that are part of is a new organization called Story DAO, and what they're doing is bringing IP into a DAO where a group of writers, a group of Hollywood producers, a group of creators can decide on whether they want to back the story and go ahead and produce it. So it's a new way to think of a studio. Think of like a Hollywood studio. Generally, that decision is made by a few individuals, not anyone who holds the token to the Story DAO, and then are able to contribute both the stories that this DAO could produce, as well as become one of the producers of it by bringing your skills to the table. So that's another example of how this type of governance system that Ace was describing allows people who hold the token vested interest in what the DAO does and is then able to make decisions by expressing their vote by being a token holder.
Absolutely. And Yossi, really quick, who was the guy that ended up buying that constitution?
It was Ken Griffin, one of the known hedge fund billionaires, kind of the arch nemesis of the crypto community. And he acquired it and has put it up in a museum. And I think it's, really trying to put the Corsairs straight on, saying, come on, crypto, come at me and let's see what you got. And we're coming.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I just wanted that name to be out there so we could see who spoiled the party. Because, again, this would have been a great achievement to put the Constitution in the hands of 17,000 instead of the hands of one person who may pass it down for the rest of the life, and we never see it again. So, yeah, I just wanted to make sure we had that.
It would have been the first time the people owned the document. It's now in the hands of museums and billionaires around.
That would have been great.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I said. They just spoiled the party there. It would have been perfect. And one thing I've thought about with DAOs, been involved with them for years now, is sort of the communities that are being created. They're digital, and most of the people may be, pseudonymous or anonymous. But do you think, Ace, that there could be a scenario where there's enough money and enough liquidity and enough support that these DAOs could sort of turn into, in real life, a small city or a small town, a plot of land, where they use this token for governance of other things? Do you think that's a possibility for DAOs in the future?
I certainly think the framework for that is there right now. I mean, like we're a lot of us are already decentralized communities, and DAOs just pretty much help us to be able to get together, to be able to make a decision on pretty much anything. Like at the moment, we're using it for crypto because that's what we're in. But I don't see any barriers for it not being used for something else. In fact, this constitution thing is new to me, and I think that if we're able to use it, in that sort of way, the sky's the limit.
Right.
Actually,
true.
To add to what Dave was saying, we saw recently, and I'm not sure if you've heard of Links DAO. It was a DAO that was formed to buy a golf course and to create a Web3 version of a golf club membership. So the DAO formed, they sold some NFTs to join the DAO. They raised $11 million in a couple of hours. And now the people who hold that NFT now need to decide on which golf course to buy. Who are the designers? How is this going to be put together? What does the membership look like? All the decisions that would take to build a golf club is now in the hands of the collective people that have acquired it. I don't have the exact numbers, but I think it was about 6,000 or 7,000 individuals who acquired that NFT for the Links DAO, and now are deciding on a real world asset, a real world property, where they're going to buy it, what they're going to do, and how to interact and create a next generation experience for golf enthusiasts through that. So you're already seeing that translate into that type of attempt that you mentioned. And another one, Miami Coin. I don't know if you've seen that. That is an initiative. It's not a DAO yet, but it is an initiative that allows people who hold the coin to contribute some funding back to the city of Miami. Anyone who holds the coin and stakes it, the city of Miami earns 30% of the revenue generated out of that. And that is going to be a coin that powers a lot of transactions in the city of Miami and is going to be powering a number of DAOs to come. So it's happening, whether you like it or not, it is happening today.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and full disclosure, I know I have some viewers that know this. I am working with the mayor of Miami on Miami Coin, and I am an advisor for Miami DAO. So it is. I didn't tell Yossi this before the show. He understands how
DAO. I did not know that.
Nice.
Exactly.
That's all good.
So, yep. So I see it happening where cities, municipal cities, and governments are getting involved because these DAOs really do form local communities. And I love the fact that you both sort of see the writing on the wall. But even if it's not a physical city, I know for a fact there's already DAOs in the metaverse. And I had a friend that sort of made a joke about it. It's like we're going to have DAO neighborhoods, and you're going to have DAO gangs like going against each other in the metaverse, playing games against each other. So it's just a great feature to see. And, you mentioned some of the DAOs you saw that had success. Have you seen any, and I'll go with you, Ace, have you seen any DAOs that may have not had success and some of the things that they did wrong, just for viewers that may want to start their own?
Oh, to be honest, I probably don't have that extensive background in DAOs to be able to tell you of ones which have been unsuccessful. The ones which I've been part of so far, which is this one, and I think I'm a member of another one. They've been fairly successful and simple. So from that perspective, I haven't seen anything which hasn't worked out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm not saying that most do, but, just trying to make sure people understand, what goes into a DAO. So, Yossi, have you seen sort of a structure that may have been a little off or a little different, or something, again, like you said, with ConstitutionDAO, a guy with more money just showed up and bought it? Have you seen any other projects like that?
Yeah, without naming any specifics, I think the projects that have struggled the most is where there is no strong mission and vision as to why this DAO needs to exist. And even though it's a decentralized organization, a core team of individuals, whether they be moderators, influencers, contributors, builders, designers who really are passionate and excited about the mission of the DAO. You need that core group of individuals to see the DAO so that it actually achieves what it is trying to build and builds enough momentum and a strong enough community that it can then go and expand from there. So where I've seen the majority of DAOs fall flat is that it doesn't get that momentum. Just putting the word DAO behind something doesn't create a community, doesn't create a mission, doesn't create a vision, doesn't create a goal as to why this needs to exist and why people should be acquiring the token, why they should be, why they should have governed and be part of a community. So that's where it generally falls flat.
Oh yeah, and I'm so glad you said that, because during a lot of go ahead, Ace. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Actually, speaking about that, like how I believe the Shiba Inu community is addressing that, the DAO is being released in 2 stages. We're having something which is called DAO 1, which, as I explained prior, is where the SHIB community is going to get to vote specifically on matters regarding the decentralized exchange. And that's sort of like a beta version. And if that works, after about a 30-day period, then they'll transition into what we call the DAO 2. And in the DAO 2, we're going to use more or less the same sort of mechanisms, but then to be able to make more generic proposals. So that's where you'll probably start seeing a lot more what you're used to seeing in traditional DAOs happen, but just not specifically for a DEX. But just for more generic things.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that gets us a little bit into the topic of what are some of the metrics that, people should research when looking at DAOs? What are, the top 3 things they should see to say, all right, this is a good project, I should look at this. What are those top 3 things for you, Ace?
I think if you can find out what the intent of the community is probably a number 1 for me. I'll probably start off on that, and then maybe try and see if the team has a track record of success, well, maybe successful implementation of projects and stuff. Those will be probably my top 2. Still trying to think my third one.
All good, but if you have the vision and you have the actual track record of success, you're on your way to go. Yossi, you want to jump in there? What other metrics should people research?
Yeah, maybe to add to that, how much of the DAO is managed or governed transparently? Is it done on-chain? Are all decisions voted on transparently? Or is there a core group of people who make the decisions? And if they are a core group of people who make the decisions, do you know how they are, and what does that governance process look like? So are you actually able to contribute a vote, and what does that actually look like, and how does that translate? If it's an established DAO, have they actually had a number of proposals that have passed? What do those proposals look like, and what did that process look like? Was there only 1 or 2 people who voted on it and it passed, or was it a very active community and you see that there's a lot of debate and there's a lot of people involved in those decisions? That's giving you another impression of how active is this DAO and how much what the kind of strength of the trajectory is based on the strength of that community. And the third that I'd look at is that I'd actually join the Discord group or the Telegram group or whichever group is being used to communicate with the members of the DAO, ask some questions and see how the responses are. Are you getting intelligent responses? Are you getting a welcoming community? Are you getting people who are engaged in the questions and topics that you bring? Or is it only questions of moon and the token price and kind of toxic environment that isn't really focused around the mission of the DAO?
Right. Yes. And those toxic environments for some DAOs, I've seen those that can drive away people. And you're right. Some people's only comments within those Discords and Telegrams is, when does the number go up? Why is it going down? And you're looking at it like, hey, man, we got a vision here. We got to we have a roadmap.
That's so true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've seen that a lot. But the one question I always pose for whatever show we do, and it kind of takes me down a notch, but I have to ask it. What happens with regulations? And in regard to regulations, how do DAOs operate within the regulatory environment currently? And then down the road, how do you think those regulations will affect? And I'll ask you first, Ace.
Well, regarding regulation, it probably depends what sort of area. Like I can speak for the Shiba Inu community a little bit, but I think at the moment that's probably something which we haven't discussed much about. So I probably can't be too clear on that one for you, mate.
Oh yeah, no problem. And Yossi, what is your outlook on the regulatory environment around DAOs, or what may become?
Yeah, well, DAOs are being regulated similar to other organizations. The city of Wyoming, the state of Wyoming, has allowed for DAO registrations and a new entity to be formed. So you actually have a legal entity be created for a DAO, and there is new case law that is being written for it. So it's still a very early structure. So it's unclear on how the regulation will transform with this new structure. What that regulation allows for is 99 members who are able to make voting decisions. So greatly increasing the voting base of an organization. So that's a great step in the right direction. And what we're seeing is that policymakers are trying to still understand this concept of a DAO. Sometimes a DAO is truly on chain and there is no organization. You have people around the world, some of them, like you mentioned, who are anonymous or pseudo-anonymous, and transactions are completely happening completely on chain, and still trying to wrap their heads around, well, who are you actually contracting with? What kind of agreement are you actually signing up for? And if something goes wrong, which jurisdiction does that actually get challenged or enforced? All of those questions still unanswered and unclear on how they will play out. But there are attempts by different cities and different countries around the world to start bringing in structures to start supporting DAOs as they're seeing more and more momentum and more capital going into these structures.
Right. And I tend to think that the name, the DAOs, that at some point their success, it won't be called DAOs. They'll just be organizations, and they'll all be set up in a similar way, because I believe, long term, that transparency is important for people to trust the people who are governing their money, when we're at a point in history where I don't think people trust it very much. So yes, I think that the regulatory environment at this point, I haven't seen really how they can regulate something. They can probably change the business structure, but when you have states like Wyoming allowing DAO structures, and then you have other countries as well, that is a whole nother basket of stuff to regulate, and they probably won't get around to it for another 2 or 3 years. So innovate now while you can. At least, yeah. I mean, they're just now trying to figure out what to do with cryptos as far as the SEC. And some of those have been around 5 or 6 years. So, it's just a waiting game to see it, but I would never discourage people from starting that DAO. But, past regulations and, taxes and what all could go into it. Looking into the future, I know we discussed it briefly, but looking into the future, what do you think some of the use cases of DAOs will be? And will it impact the world that we know positively or negatively? And Ace, I'll start there with you.
I think we'll probably see different versions of what we currently have at the moment. DAOs will always be a way for communities to be able to, to vote things in. They're a good decision-making tool, I think. If I was to try and think how else could it be used, I'm actually struggling to think, of something particularly unique. It'll always be some sort of a decision-making structure, That's how I see it at the moment. Mm-hmm. At least as far as I'm aware of DAOs.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And as far as the innovation that comes, it's funny because usually you can't see it. Then when it happens, it seems like in retrospect, oh, this was obvious. We should have been doing this anyway.
It seemed obvious. Yeah.
Exactly. So whatever comes, there's some 13-year-old kid that's going to introduce something in a few years. We're going to be like, well, why didn't we think of that? But yes, Yossi, what do you see? It was obvious. Right. So Yossi, what do you see?
I think the 0 to 1 shift that we're seeing with DAOs, why it's such a massive change in innovation, is for 2 reasons. One, things change when you become an owner, when you become a voting shareholder, when you have a say in the governance of whether it is what you're going to do with a document like the Constitution, or what you're going to do in designing a golf course or telling a story. You are now a member, a participant, an active person in the formation, in the changes, and in the story and the ongoing development of this. Now, to date, that ability is only available to shareholders, to people in the US at least, who are accredited investors who are going to invest in a startup, or they can only buy shares in a company when it's listed. Now, that already excludes a massive percentage of the population from being able to be an active participant in how an organization is governed and structured and any decisions that are made along that path. What DAOs now do is it open that up to a much, much, much broader audience. So I think the use cases that you're going to see is going to translate and touch every single industry, because everyone wants to have a vote, wants to have a say in the things that they are passionate about, or that the things that impact their lives, whether that comes from gaming to recruiting to leisure to entertainment. Every aspect that you can think of, there is a DAO application that could apply in how that transforms and how that is governed. And then the second 0 to 1 innovation is that there is what we think is called a coordination premium. When you can bring tens of thousands of people, 17,000 people in the case of ConstitutionDAO, together to be able to rapidly raise capital and potentially govern something in a new way, a new mechanism globally, that brings a massive premium. It unlocks a tremendous amount of value in whatever that mission is trying to do. So you would have seen that even with the People token today, the market cap of that token is a couple of $100 million, even though the ConstitutionDAO wasn't acquired or the Constitution wasn't acquired. That is that coordination premium that we're talking about. When you can bring massive groups of people together to make decisions on something that's important, you unlock tremendous value. So the ownership and coordination premium, I think, is a game changer, and it's going to impact every single industry.
Oh yeah, and I was listening to it when you said it, and it went off. I don't know if that's a word yet, but coordination premium may be the next innovations that we see, like the term coming out. Like, hey, I was a part of this DAO, it didn't go through, but because I coordinated, we got free airdrops for the rest of our life, or whatever, or whatever the thing is. So I think that is something that's very, wow, it's very innovative to think about long term. So glad you brought that up. We got a new term that I can use now: coordinating premiums. Thank you.
Coordination premium. That is awesome.
Yeah, exactly. I wish I could credit it was my term. It's one of our investors, Jake Bruckman from CoinFund. He came up with the term. So I'll give him credit where credit is due, but it's 100% the way we think about it.
Oh yeah, well I'll talk to Jake and see if I can use it when I'm talking to my friends, so I can sound smart. But yes, that sounds great. And I want to thank you both for speaking about one of my favorite subjects, DAOs. And thank you again both for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Our pleasure. Thank you for having us.
And that's it for this episode of Community Crypto. Every week, we're building a global community with local crypto groups. So be sure to tune in every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on CoinDesk TV. See you then.